Hi, my name is Jamie, and I am here with my friend Ardenay. This is our relationship series. We met in a very aligned way, and we have a lot of things in common. And we just got to talking and brainstorming about how we can bring awareness to certain topics, such as relationships and domestic violence, since that's a big topic right now. And this is our way of bringing awareness to that. Full disclaimer, this is not therapy. This is not advice to be taken outside of therapy. If you need help, please reach out to your local resource in regards to domestic violence. There is a domestic violence hotline. There is the police station that you can call if necessary, as well as other community resources that we will be happy to share. This is for entertainment purposes, not to be taken as opposed to therapy.
All right. Well, thank
Right. Well,
you, Jamie, for that powerful introduction. And again, my name is Ardenay Garner, and I am a personal development coach. And like Jamie said, we met in Charlotte, North Carolina, at a celebratory event for Johnson C. Smith University. And here we are about 4 weeks later to the day, and we're producing this 4-part relationship series. And so I'm excited to have conversation. I definitely feel like our topics are going to be aligned with what's happening out in the country, the United States of America, with, the major public case that we have happening with Sean P. Diddy Combs and Cassie, forgive me. And so our topic for today is going to be the signs. And when we say the signs of abuse, the signs that you might be embarking on forgiveness, the signs that you may be ready to um, disrespect yourself, just the signs to be aware of when you are in unhealthy relationships, right? And this is a casual conversation. Like Jamie said, we are here for informational purposes. So if something we say resonates with you, feel free to post your comment below. Feel free to reach out to us on our personal social media sites because we're sharing our lived experience, right? And so what that means is the things that we talk about are applicable to us, but I know it's not just us. There's 8.2 billion people on in this planet, right? And so I know that I'm not alone in the domestic violence that I experience. And so people who may have a similar path with me may be able to benefit for some of the lessons and the warning signs that I may share on today. So be free, be open, be encouraged, be inspired. And if you are in a domestic violence situation, definitely seek help.
And we also want to say this is not a bashing session. Neither one of us believe in that. Neither one of us have too much of anything to do with the people we've experienced these things with. In the spirit of that, no names will be mentioned, no government names will be mentioned. And this again is not to harm or anything like that. This is our experiences, and we are hoping that our experiences can be used to benefit somebody else who may be going through the same thing.
Exactly. In fact, I call my abuser forgiveness. So you will probably hear me reference forgiveness because that's the name that I assigned to him because that's the lesson he taught me in my relationship. So my abuser name is forgiveness.
I love that for you. I call mine nothing, in the most literal way. I nothing this person. And in the spirit of that, with the signs, I also want to say, these people do have families. And that does not take away from their role to their family. We are simply talking about our experience based with individuals. It has nothing to do with anything else in their life. So, yes.
And I want to say, Jamie, I get you saying that because Jamie is being very thoughtful of the other individual where she's making me more aware. I don't know what he has, but I just call him forgiveness. And my attitude around him might not be as positive as Jamie's, but I'm healed. I'm not gonna bash him. I mean, the greatest lesson he taught me was forgive, but I do want to be respectful because I don't know what space that forgiveness is in, and I'm not even concerned. But that's a great point. So I appreciate you, Jamie, for sharing that.
Of course. And I think, again, like we were saying before we started recording, the beautiful part about it is, yes, we have similar backgrounds, extremely similar, in that we both are social workers, master's level social workers at that, and both have lived this experience. And we're also in two completely different spaces in regards to the next steps after the relationship. So, because we aren't identical, I think that's why this is so powerful, and that it's two different points of view, but it's the same message. And I think that's love above anything else because it's needed. It's needed. And again, that's not to say that judgment is on anybody. If you are in a domestic violence relationship, the goal is safety for you if you continue to stay in that relationship. But with awareness and with understanding what you're going through, the hope is that you love yourself enough to not deal with that. And that's a part of the journey of both of us.
Awesome sauce. So let's jump into it. What are some of the signs that you are in an unhealthy relationship? It could be unhealthy, it could be abusive, it could be deceiving, it could be with a significant partner, it could be with a colleague or a friend. But what are some of the signs that you are in an unhealthy relationship? And that's what we're going to be talking about today in part one of our four-part series. And I made some notes, right, from my first book that I wrote called Divine Invitations, The Seven Spiritual Lessons of Relationships. And there are 5 early warning signs that I identified. And so I may share a few of those signs, and we're going to go back and forth and kind of chop it up because this is a conversation. And Jamie and I are kindred spirits. And so we're going to do some real talk. And so you'll hear us vibing as if no one else is paying attention, because that's how we get down. And we encourage you to have some real talk conversations with your girlfriends, with your sister people, with your family members, because that's what it's about, right? We don't just go through these experiences for ourselves. I believe we go through these experiences to help someone else get over it and get through. And so the very first warning that I was embarking upon an unhealthy relationship was when I decided to break the rules and reduce my own personal standards, right? Many of you may have rules and you may have standards about or boundaries that you set when you are interacting with people or when you're dealing with relationships. And I know very early on, I was 17 years old, have never really been in a long-term relationship, I hadn't even had sex before. And I met this guy who falsely represented himself, and he just had so much swag and just was a really interesting person. And so I just decided to just forego all my rules and standards. This man had a child, ended up having 2. I didn't know about that. Was significantly older than me, but lied about his age. Um, he was everything that I would not typically entertain. And so as far as the rules that I had in the beginning, I just dropped them all. And that's for me an early sign that you are about to entertain an opportunity to experience forgiveness, or are you about to set yourself up for self-sabotage because you're disregarding your own rules and boundaries that you set for yourself that serve a purpose in either keeping you safe or protecting yourself? What a rule do you have, Jamie?
I am honestly learning that as I go on my journey of self-love. And one thing that you said that resonated with me is dropping your standards. So for me, I'm trying to figure out what standards I have for myself. So in saying that, that's not to say I just didn't have standards. I had standards, but they were so low because what was important to me, I was 27, I think, when I met my person, and we were around the same age. I was a couple months older than him. Um, I brought my social work brain into my life. So, as a social worker, I'm a very strengths based individual. I will look at the positives of a person and we are going to work together based on your strengths. I use that same model in my personal relationships. In learning to love myself, I am recognizing that the difference is with being a social worker, I'm not being phony in my personal life. As a social worker, I am working on a case plan with you. It is not my job to work on a case plan with a grown ass man. And
No.
excuse me for saying that, but that's how I talk and that's what it is. So, in watching this series, if I say some colorful words, I talk like that. So that's what it is again. But I had to learn that I can't make a case plan for my significant other. And that was a thing throughout our relationship because again, very strengths based. So where as my friends is looking at me like, "Hey, what's going on? Like this ain't for you." I'm like, "No, y'all not looking at the good stuff." And they like, "Why are you looking at the good stuff? Like, this person shouldn't even, be around." And in saying that, I also loved how you said like, the person was very charismatic. I think that's something that should be paid attention to when we watch certain things. They have this portrayal of an abuser as somebody that's normally like unattractive, just like mean from the jump and stuff like that. That is often not the case. These people can be the most entertaining, interesting people you have ever met in your life. And again, because they have this negative side to them does not mean that they are a bad quote unquote person. I wholeheartedly don't believe that. And I think that's evident in some of the historical people that we know who have been abusive towards people. Some of your favorite entertainers have been abusive towards their significant others. That doesn't take away from their talent. That does mean that maybe they don't have the respect for other people that they should have, and maybe that's not people that those people deserve to have in their lives. So watch out for how a person interacts with you. A person can be the sweetest, most loyal friend and turn around and treat you like dirt. And it's a level of loving yourself so much that you recognize that I don't deserve to be treated that way. So when you have that self love, which I lacked, um, I disregarded myself a lot, in the sense of I'm resilient, I can take this. So it's like, oh, okay, I see why you treating me like that. You treat me like this because you went through this. So let me prove to you that I'm not like these people. So I'm gonna take the punches because I see how great you can be to other people. Instead of realizing, you know what, this is that person's journey for themselves. In regards with a relationship with me, they don't deserve me, but I wish them well in every other aspect of their life. It's okay to walk away. You don't have to be the person that says they need just a little bit more of me in order to be okay because you need you to.
Mm.
And it's okay to say, I deserve better. And it took me a long time, even though I knew I deserved better, I didn't give up any aspirations with dating this person. I actually achieved a lot of stuff in spite of dating this person because that's who I was mentally. I was older, you know, than you and your experience. And had I met him that young, it'd have been different probably. But because I was older, I was already practicing in my field. It was like, okay, maybe if he sees me doing this, he can do something too. Instead of realizing, like, hey, the moment a person calls you out your name, the moment a person destroys something of yours, the moment a person tries to degrade you, belittle you, physically put hands on you, it's okay to say, hey, bruh, I don't know what it is you got going on, but you can't do that with me and walk away. So I think with signs, self love goes along with the signs for me because had I really cared for myself enough, it wouldn't have got as far as it did. But because I saw myself as a savior, I had the audacity to think that I can save somebody from some stuff they was doing to me. I caught myself for saying a colorful word just then. I'm trying. From some stuff they were doing to me, I would have cared about myself more and not allowed the situation to go as far as it did.
And it's interesting that you talk about your age and where you were in your career because I was very young. And like I said, I was 17 years old when I met Forgiveness. He was the first everything, first adult man that I dated, the first person I had sex with. He was the first person that I was aware of that had a different um right knowledge base, so it wasn't Christian but had a new was operating in a new thought consciousness. And like early on, I want to say, where I hear the love and compassion that you have for your person, Jamie. I want to say early on, I believe that Forgiveness targeted me and it was all about manipulation. And the reason why I say targeted me was because he misrepresented himself in every way imaginable. Like the name that he gave me was not correct. His age was not correct. His household status was not correct. The number of children he had was not correct. Like the vehicle he owned wasn't correct. Where he said he went to school, like it was all a lie. And so
Mhm.
I was introduced to a lie and I fell in love with a character that wasn't even who he really represented himself. So I have to say that this was intentional. Whereas
Mhm.
it wasn't about me. I gotta pause. Let me stop this. 1 second.
And if it is a long one, I'll just
All right, so we are back at you talking about the signs, how to recognize when you are in an unhealthy or abusive relationship. And so I was talking a little bit about how Jamie has a lot of compassion for her person. And in my situation, I really feel like I was a target because of the misrepresentation. Everything about him was a lie. And so I was denied the opportunity to make a choice if I wanted to be with him based off of reality. And my choice was based off of a lie. Like I fell in love with a character. And I'm not bitter about that, but I'm real about that because I was denied the opportunity to decide if I wanted to date someone that was 24 when I was only 17 years old. I was denied the opportunity to decide if I wanted to date someone that had two children and not just one. Um, where he went to school and what he majored in, all of that was a fabrication. And I just felt like I was cheated because I'm not sure why he felt he could not be honest in the beginning. I mean, we're just meeting, and even the your name wasn't even truthful. So everything was a lie, and so I have a different feel about him. Not that I'm not compassionate, but I do recognize the manipulation and that I was a target. And on top of that, not only was he my first, but this man gave me an STD. All, you know what I'm saying? All these things. So you didn't disclose your STD status. So it's just so many things that happened. But again, I own all that because what did I say that happened for me? I dropped my standards. If I would not have made that very first choice in dropping my own personal standards, I would not have went and embarked on this 10-year journey in forgiveness and abuse. So I own that. I don't fault him. I'm actually grateful that I had that experience because guess what? Your girl your girl don't play. So I study people, I read people, and I'm already assessing if this gonna be a seasonal relationship, a long term relationship, or we're just meeting in this moment and that's a wrap. So I appreciate that I got to experience what I believe was 5 men with one person. So I'm
Mm,
grateful. I am grateful for my lesson with forgiveness because he was a 5 for 1.
I love it. I absolutely love it. And I think it's so beautiful that you were able to look back and say, like, hey, this is what it was. I'm not bitter about it, but I can acknowledge how messed up the situation was. I have gotten through this situation. It is okay. And I learned so many things from it. I think that is the beautiful part about your story that I know. And I admire that you're able to analyze it in that way and speak about it to help other people.
Yeah, I wouldn't have it any other way because it's really about ownership. You know, I hear a lot of people blaming, well, he did, she did. And while they did do those things, what did you do? What role did you play? What did you allow? What did you disregard? What did you ignore? What did you think? Like you said, you created a whole case plan for your person. Now that's interesting. And, you know, sometimes it's in us, especially those of us that are human service workers. We want to help others. We believe that other people have great potential. And so sometimes we want to, we convince ourselves that we're their person, but I think that it's unlikely that we're going to be that person when we're in an intimate relationship or a significant relationship. Like we can't be that person for them in many
You're
instances.
absolutely right. You are absolutely right. And I'm blessed because of the people that are around me. I have a beautiful family that I did not inform about this situation. And I have the most amazing friends in the world who present things to me. And I've grown. Let me say that. Let me put that disclaimer out there. I have grown in my ability to accept what people are saying to me. I was once that person where you say something to me I don't like, all right, we can talk about it no more. Um, Being in that relationship and seeing the things that my friends said to me based on what they saw early on has made me be more aware that if my friend says something that hurts me, the intent is not to hurt. The intent is to say, we know your heart. We know that you think you're supposed to be people's helpmate. You don't have to do that. So, and even that word, helpmate, I did think I was this person's helpmate. This person had children. This person didn't have a job. Um, And it was like, no, well, all you need is this and that. All you need is purpose. Find your purpose. Like, and I really thought that I was supposed to help this person find these things. And in my mind, and I also want to, this is something my friends and I talk about as well, the perception. So, me being my age at that time, I love movies like The Best Man, Love and Basketball. I love watching Living Single, Girlfriends, things of that nature. And the underlying message between those things, even though those women were educated and beautiful and had strong minds, the underlying message of all these things was you need a man. And so,
Mhm.
with that being the underlying message, and me trying to grow out of that, but also one of my biggest desires that still has not come into fruition yet is I wanted children. So, with me dealing with somebody who had a lot of kids and I wanted kids, it's like, oh, well, if he had purpose in his life, I know I can have kids. So, hey, here we are. I'm his helpmate and I'm able to have the babies that I want now. So, this is going to be my happily ever after because if I stay down, it's only going to get better. Little did I know, shit got worse and worse and worse. So, it's a learning lesson. Um, the first actual sign that I saw, the first sign that I saw at that time, looking back, I could tell you a sign I saw in the very beginning. But with me being in this situation, the first sign I saw was anger. Um, the person punched a hole in my wall in an apartment I was renting. Um, that incident, one of my friends saw it and was like, "Hey, I don't know what you got going on, but I know that's not good. And I need you to listen to me when I say that's not good." Because the situation that the person punched a hole in my wall regarding, it was through jealousy. They felt as if I was flirting with one of their friends and they punched a hole in my wall. And so my friend, this friend was a male. He let me know. He was like, that's not a good sign, especially not this early on. You've only known this man for less than 2 months, and he punching a hole in your wall. Um, you might want to leave that alone. I didn't listen, and worse things happened. But as far as signs, me seeing that that person wasn't able to, for one, have a conversation with me, for two, trust me enough to think that I wasn't flirting with one of their friends, and for three, able to regulate their emotions to where they didn't exert violence on some property that was mine that I had to be responsible for. Had I had the level of self love I have now, that would have been oh boy walking papers right then. But because instead of having self love, I desired to pour love so bad, I was like, okay, maybe I was too friendly. And I fought it myself.
It's interesting, Jamie, that you bring up the very first sign because I think it's important for those of you that are watching and or listening to this to recognize that the first sign is usually a strong indicator and trust your guttural instincts when it says this is not for you. Because my first sign was when I actually saw his driver's license and it had a different name and birth date and birth year. And I questioned him on it, and his explanation was another lie. But I should have known because even when I seen the driver's license, there was other things that I recalled people had said about this particular individual, not knowing this is who that individual was because he gave me a different name and things started to register. Then I was like, oh, this is the man that this woman was talking about when I was in high school. And she was saying he was the father of her child and he was abusive. And like it was starting to line up. But I began to ignore the signs, and that's you are destined to set yourself up for an experience of self-forgiveness when you start to ignore the signs and the red flags. Like you are guaranteed to encounter some form of self-sabotage, self-abuse, or opportunities to express forgiveness to others when you start to ignore those flags and signs. I mean, it's the inevitable. So part of our message today is to not disregard or ignore those signs. They're there for a reason. It's actually there to protect you or prevent you. And some lessons we've got to go through because that's just part of our pathway and journey. But hindsight is 2020. What I know now, like I would have just continued to, I would not have entertained anything about that individual had I known. But hey, that's why I'm here now. That's why I can say I'm a personal development coach. And that's why we're having this relationship series because that was a part of my path, which is why I'm not bitter. I'm grateful. And I'm grateful that it was one person because I could have had 15 people teach me the lesson in forgiveness. And I'm like, I'm a fast learner. I tell God all the time, listen, Lord, I only need one lesson. You don't have to keep repeating the lessons. I'm going to learn it the first time around. We ain't going to take 15 people to teach me a lesson in forgiveness, which is why I said my person was 5 people. And I'm grateful for that one experience.
Whew, yes, ma'am. Understood. Understood. And I think a major thing with the signs is also going back to what you said in the very beginning. In dating somebody, make sure for one, you have standards. You have to have standards. Standards are important and not doubling back on your standards. So that's extremely important. And again, love and appreciation of yourself. Because if you genuinely love yourself, it's some stuff you just not gonna put yourself in a position to deal with.
And so, Jamie, when you say love yourself, I know for me, I wasn't even aware when I didn't love myself. So I think it'd be important for us to talk a little bit about what it looks like and feels like when you're loving yourself. I know that at 17, I wasn't aware that I had insecurities. I wasn't aware that I had a low self image. Um, I do recall that I just yearned to be in a long term relationship. And then when I think back, like, why was that? Because my father was in my life. I was a daddy's girl. My mom was in my life. I was the youngest of four children. Um, but I'm like, why was I yearning so much to be in a long-term relationship to the point where I remember telling my mother, when I graduate high school, I'm going to go off to college. And I'm like, I'm never coming back because I'm going to find me a guy and I'm going to go to his family house for Christmas and Thanksgiving. And she's like, okay. And I said, I won't see you for 4 years. And she's like, if that's what you want to do, okay. I know she was calling my bluff, but I was going to college honestly to find a man. Like that was my primary goal. And I just want to know why I yearned for that so much because that is what probably was the thing that set me up to when I connected with forgiveness just before, like I connected with him in the summer after I graduated high school at 17. We started communicating, and so I really didn't even get to meet men in college because we were already in a relationship, and he started coming up to campus and he transferred. And y'all, this man transferred, like he went to the local school district office, stole some kind of device where you can certify documents, and that is how he got enrolled in the college that I was going to. When I tell you this person was a character, he was an actual character.
An evil genius is what he sounds like.
He
My
really
goodness.
was a brilliant genius.
And it's like, how do you use those powers for good? Can you imagine what he would have been able to accomplish? Wow, that's some dedication. Um, wow, again, strength space, but seriously, with that, I do wonder what it is about that. Like you said, you came from a two-parent household, you had the love from your father, but you just yearned to be in a relationship. And I don't think it's anything wrong with desiring to be with somebody. I think it's wrong when it's like we going back to standards, when you lower your standards to be with somebody that's not putting forth the same effort as you or have the same respect as you. I think most people do desire to be in relationships. In this moment, I don't, but that's just because of where I am on my journey. That's a whole nother story we probably will get into. But I do think it's normal for you to say like, okay, I do desire to connect my life with somebody else's because we have that idea of this is going to be good for me. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And you have that now. And I think that's an important thing for us to point out. You do have somebody, you are married, you are in love, and you have passed your soulmate. What did you say it was?
So he's my divine mate. I did have a soulmate,
Yes.
but he's my divine mate because, he was truly sent by God. But the irony of that, Jamie, is I met my husband after I decided I was ready to be single, and I was like, I surrendered, like, Lord, use me single. And literally the very next day. So it's interesting. When I was desiring to be in a long-term relationship, I encountered forgiveness. I mean, I was designed, that was my goal, my whole college goal. Then when I released and surrendered, like, Lord, you know what? I think you about to use me as a single woman, and I'm good with that. The moment I surrendered is when he introduced me to my divine mate. Who would have figured? And at that age, it was this is 2025, so it was 15 years ago. Yeah, it was 15 years ago because it was in 2010. And so I was ready to live a life of being single because I was like, I'm over it. And then that's when he introduced me. So, and I think it might be connected to my father was very critical. And so I think I experienced rejection from him because he was always critiquing me. And my dad was born in 1936. And so his delivery wasn't the best. I mean, he was loving, but he was mean. He could be rude, and he was just critical. He critiqued me of the way I sounded, the way I looked. Always said, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. And I know many parents have said that, especially from that generation. But what parents don't know is that's teaching children to invalidate their voice. Like, I'm not always going to have something nice to say. And so, are you telling me because I don't have something nice or positive to say that I should not speak? But that's how I interpret it as a child. And so I was voiceless. I was mute for many years, and not mute in the sense that I didn't talk, but mute in the sense that I didn't connect with and or acknowledge or share or articulate my feelings to anyone. I didn't even know what my feelings were. I didn't learn my feelings until I was an adult, where I had to go and be in a 2-year program to understand what that even was. So,
And in you saying that, I'm understanding you better. And I'm understanding the dynamics better. So another part of those domestic violence and unsafe relationships is shutting up when they don't want to talk about something, not realizing now that we are adults and we do have voices. Conflict is not a bad thing. Conflict is bad when people don't know how to handle it. You have
right.
to have uncomfortable conversations in order to thrive. A relationship, a friendship, or anything, there are going to be difficulties. And it's beauty in getting through difficulty in a way that both parties are respected and heard and to try to be understood. So, when you saying that, I understand more how that situation could have come about because it's like, okay, this person is lying. I'm seeing that you're a liar. I'm seeing that you're a manipulator, but those aren't nice things to say. So let me not say anything about that. Let me sit back because you know what? You are fulfilling this need of me to have this relationship. So let me just acknowledge the positive things of you instead of having those conversations and saying, like, hey, I'm seeing this. I don't too much care for that. And then having that conversation and be like, oh, this person ain't for me. They don't know how to handle me disagreeing with them. So, okay.
And
I'm
that's a
getting it.
true story because, again, I was young, I was impressionable. He was buying me things, and I experienced so many firsts with him. Like, he was the first person I met that did not eat pork. And he was educating me on how harmful pork is. And then he started to challenge me not to eat pork. He was an athlete. He was handsome. I'm not gonna say that he was not handsome. I mean, tall, dark skin,
Mhm.
waist, but just all the things, right? But it was like I was experiencing so many firsts at once, and then he gave me undivided attention, and that is probably what did it for me because I'm a Libra. Libras love attention, and I'm not like we need to be in the front, but like for me, if you are sitting listening to me talk and we vibing mentally, that's the best love making one could ever for that's the best love making I can experience. I'll keep it personal, right? And so he was giving me that conversation, and then his conversation was about topics I've never heard of before. So I was just impressed in so many ways that when I confronted him on that lie, like even his lie seemed plausible. Like, okay, so you were adopted and that's why you have this different identity.
An
I
identity.
He blended some of the truth with mostly a lie. So I mean, it was just that's why I said it was just so many things was just I fell in love with a misrepresentation, and then we got pregnant,
And pregnant
soon after. So then
and
had a child, and
at a
then it
time
changed the game because also while he was abusive, and I knew the very first time that he hit me, which was when we were driving down the oh back up. You said your person punched the wall. He broke a TV. Excuse me, like picked up a 13-inch TV, threw it on the floor, and I'm like, oh shit, this is not cool because was he trying to direct that to me? And then he had these angry outbursts and lashed out, and I'm at that time I was probably like 5 or 7 months pregnant. So what do I do in that situation? And I've already moved into his house, and so you know what I'm saying? It was just a whole situation. But the first time that he actually assaulted me was when we were driving in a vehicle down the highway in Atlanta, Georgia, probably going about 50, 60 miles an hour. And I'm holding my 5-month-old son and he punches me in my jaw.
just me in my jaw.
And in that
And
moment,
in that moment,
I could not react because for me to react, I think it could have been fatal. Like I'm holding a baby, don't know why I didn't have the baby in the car seat, but I'm holding a baby. We're going 50 miles an hour. He punches me in my jaw, and all I could do is sit there in devastation and thinking, don't say anything, be still, because the next
because the
move
next
is critical.
is critical.
And then it just went on from there. It would escalate, but I still stayed in that relationship for probably 8.5 years after that, because the other thing that I was trying to consider is I don't want to deprive my children of their father because I had my father. I don't know what it's like to be raised without a father, and I didn't want to put
I
them
didn't want to put
in
them
that situation. But we'll talk about, we'll get more into depth because some of you may
because
be in
some of
that
you
very
may be
same predicament. And for me, that was the biggest thing. I don't want to ruin my children's future if I remove their father. But then there becomes a point where it's either something's got to give because it's not going to work out. And I had to make a decision. Do I jeopardize my family? And what does it really mean? Because there's many people that grow up without a father that are very successful. But in my mind, at that young, impressionable age, for me, the biggest factor was, will I harm my children? And that is probably why I stayed that much longer. It took me 10 years to leave, not because I didn't want to. And I always knew
and
I
I always knew
would. I just didn't know when.
that makes sense. That is a very powerful story. And I'm so glad that we're doing this series, especially because our situations, and I think it's so important that we both have experienced domestic violence, but in the exact opposite ways of the circumstances, going to show that it is not a cookie cutter thing. It
No.
is now some things are like the steps and stuff, the progression, yes,
Mhm.
but the circumstances are different. So again, if you are in a situation, you might already be aware, but if you're early in the situation and you're starting to see signs, please don't ignore it. You can literally be saving your life by recognizing what it is, being reality based and saying, Although my dream is to have this, the reality of the situation is this person is doing that, and that does not align with my dreams. So again, back to your question with starting it with self-love. I think self-love first and foremost is understanding that you deserve to be treated at the very least like a person.
Mm.
You don't deserve to be harmed. You don't deserve to be hit. You don't deserve to have your property destroyed. You don't deserve to be called out of your name. You deserve to be respected. And I think that's the first step to self love. And in doing that, you have to respect yourself.
I love all of that. And I know some people may feel like, well, I'm not deserving. I didn't see it. It wasn't modeled for me. But the thing is, we are all deserving because we are human and we do deserve to be treated with respect and dignity. Like that goes without saying. It doesn't matter our
Our
socioeconomic status,
socioeconomic
background.
status
We deserve to be treated with respect and dignity no
and
matter
dignity
what.
no matter what.
I'll add
I
another step for developing self-love, and it's being brutally honest with yourself, like
Yes.
being brutally honest about where you are in your journey, whether you like yourself, you don't like yourself, you love yourself, you don't love yourself, acknowledging your flaws and all, and saying this is who I am, and getting to a place where even if who you are is not who you want to be, but being able to acknowledge that, like being brutally honest and removing the mask and the facade that all is well when you are really suffering in silence, because that is what I believe diminishes our power and our sense of self, is when we are perpetrating a fraud like he was. I to this day I don't even know why all of the misrepresentation, because I meet people that show up in their fullness, be like, yo, I was incarcerated, I did this, I got to be all of the things, because we're human and anybody in their adult life has been through something. But this particular person just never gave me the opportunity. But that's why I'm saying another step in self-love is about being brutally honest with yourself first, and then if you
then
feel
if you
safe enough
feel
to share with
safe enough
others,
to share with
share, but just being real with yourself, because that's where it
because
matters the
that's
most. Because no matter what relationship you are in, you still show up. The little
mhm,
girl that has wounded and never addressed her hurt or her abuse or the molestation, that little girl shows up with you no matter what relationship you in, whether he's
relationship you in
wealthy, whether he's poor, whether he's black, whether he's white, that person shows up. So
person
be
shows up.
brutally
So be
honest about what's real for you,
for
about
you
who you
about
are,
who you
what you
are,
want,
what you
what
want,
you represent, what your values are, what
views
your
are, what your
um, core beliefs are, the things that you're working on, the things that you won't accept, the things that you will accept. And nobody gets to tell you what you need to do or what you expectations you need to have. Like you get to determine that for yourself. Now, if people make
yes.
recommendations and you say, oh, okay, that's a good recommendation, and you decide to adopt it, but people, I'm talking about adults. We're not talking about children, because children are still being groomed and nurtured and influenced by the adults in their lives. But I'm really speaking to adults here, people 21 and up. You get to define what your expectations are for yourself and what your desires are, and what you want. Like parents, we set these expectations on our children, and yeah, we do want them to have great lives and all the things. But guess what? They get to decide what's a great life for them. So being brutally honest, I think, is another requirement to self love, because you have to know you, your likes, your dislikes, your wants, your interests. And if you don't know that about you, then start there.
Mhm. I absolutely agree, and I think that this has been a great first episode. I'm so grateful to have connected with you, and I am really looking forward to the following episodes.
I am too, Jamie. And so we
Amy, and
are
so
wrapping up our first series and our four-part relationship series. And so today we've talked about the signs,
signs.
talked about some of the signs are manipulation, deception, ignoring the red flags, ignoring your intuition, disregarding yourself, releasing your boundaries. And so, coming up next, we're going to be talking about denial, right? Y'all need to stay connected with us because it's going down because we're having real conversations about relationships, no holds bar. I'm being fully transparent. Jamie's being fully transparent because it's time out for all the fakeness. Like there's a time and a place for that, but this ain't it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I look forward to episode 2.
All
Thank
right. Take
you.
care,
And
family.
again, we will link and put in the comments the hotline information for the National Domestic Violence Hotline. So thank you.
All right. Stay
All right.
tuned. Like, follow, subscribe, and see us for the next series next Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern
PM
Standard
Eastern
Time.